and welcome to History Made Simply, your one-stop history hop back in time, where each week we'll be uncovering history's secrets for you. Make sure to like this episode and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for weekly History Made Simply episodes. On today's episode, get ready to don your sailor hat and lower the anchor as we go back to the American Navy in 1852 and sail with the Commodore Matthew Perry, the father of the American Steam Navy, and who opened up Japan to USA and by default the rest of the world and ended their isolation. Born in 1794 in Rhode Island, USA, Matthew Perry found himself in a naval family. His father, Christopher, was a captain in the US Navy, a high rank at this time, as the American Navy was rather small in 1794. In fact, the American Navy consisted of nothing bigger than well-designed, well-armed frigates and other smaller vessels. By 1809, Matthew Perry joined the US Navy as a midshipman. Matthew Perry had a fairly undistinguished career in the War of 1812, the war between the US and Great Britain, as he spent much of this war blockaded aboard the USS United States in New London, Connecticut. After peace was established with Great Britain, he then served on warships in the Mediterranean and West Africa, suppressing the Barbary pirates and the African slave trade. Matthew Perry's first real contribution to American history was when the US effectively purchased Florida from the Spanish for $5 million in 1819. But Key West fell into the hands of a US businessman in 1821 for $2,000. Matthew Perry, commanding a 12-gun schooner at the time, was the one who planted the US flag on Key West in 1822. From 1833 to 1837, Matthew Perry was a captain and was second in command of the Brooklyn Navy Yard. There, he oversaw the construction of the second steam-powered frigate, USS Fulton. After the completion of the USS Fulton, Matthew Perry commanded this ship, and whilst doing so, he also set up engineering and gunnery training schools so the Navy could successfully move into the steam era. In doing so, he became recognised as the father of the American Steam Navy. In 1840, Matthew Perry was promoted to Commodore, which is the equivalent to a one-star general brigadier, because he returned to the Brooklyn Navy Yard as the commander of this vital facility. In 1843, he took command of the squadron of ships which the US Navy maintained off the coast of West Africa for the suppression of slave trade. In 1846, the United States provoked a war with its southern neighbour, Mexico, who was objecting to the annexation of Texas, prior to it becoming a state of the Union. Texas had become an independent republic in 1836, after the Battle of San Jacinto, which lasted all of 18 minutes. This should give some idea of the weak military powers of the state of Mexico at that time. So while Commodore Matthew Perry played a distinguished part in the war, indeed ending up as the commander of all US naval forces, effectively he was pushing against an open door. Towards the end of 1852, Commodore Matthew Perry was tasked by the President of the US at that time, Millard Fillmore, with the task of opening up relations with Japan. But why Japan though? Let's find out. By the end of 1852, the USA was interested in bringing the 270-year isolation of Japan under the Tokugawa shogunate to an end. Put simply, Japan had spent 270 years in isolation to the rest of the world, by choice, and the USA wanted to bring it to an end. But why? To put it simply, the US operated a large whaling fleet from New England to the waters around Japan and could benefit from access to the Japanese archipelago, meaning a sea or stretch of many islands, which perfectly describes Japan. With the USA having this access to islands in this area of the ocean, it would allow the US to recover shipwrecked sailors, establish coaling stations, repair damaged ships and replenish food supplies for the whalers. Japan enjoyed their self-isolation, but in the beginning of the 17th century CE, Japan was effectively invaded by the Portuguese, directed by the Jesuit priests who were attempting to convert Japan to Roman Catholicism with some success, while trading for porcelain, silks, tea and any number of other products in demand in Europe in return for guns, artillery and gunpowder. Yet Japan, rather sensibly, expelled all Europeans as soon as they had learned how to master the technologies to make guns, artillery and gunpowder, and had a very high literacy, over 75%. They no longer needed to trade, and banned Christianity and all contact with the outside world. except for a Dutch trading post on a miserable little island in Nagasaki harbour, and kept to their isolation once more. It took Matthew Perry some time to execute the order given to him by US President Millard Fillmore to open up Japan, as he had to go the long way around the planet to get there, via the Cape of Good Hope, in order to get his squadron of steam-powered frigates to Japan. You may wonder, why didn't he just cross the Pacific? Well, there were no coaling stations established, and his ships did not have the range without them, all the need more to get to Japan. It took until 1853 for Matthew Perry's expedition to reach Japan. With such a journey, Matthew Perry had time to consult experts and study books written about Japan. The Japanese reaction to Matthew Perry's arrival close to their capital of Edo was to redirect him and his steamships to Nagasaki, the port open to the Dutch to maintain limited contact, as they didn't want him so close to their capital or to them. Matthew Perry's reaction to this was to exercise gunboat diplomacy, meaning he put on a technological show, has 4 steam-operated frigates were equipped with the most modern rifled artillery, which could fire explosive shells. In contrast, the Japanese Navy was still equipped with outdated ships and guns. The price of isolation came home to roost. So in apparent celebration of American independence, he fired all the guns at his disposal, 70 plus, loaded with blanks. The Japanese reaction was muted, largely as a result for the shogun being ill. Yet Matthew Perry, exercising foresight, had a letter from the US government translated into Japanese as a final port of call because visiting the Japanese archipelago, which he demanded to present. The shogun's deputy, who did not view receiving a letter as a breach of sovereignty, eventually decided to accept the letter, but asked Matthew Perry to move from his anchorage to a beach to the south, which Matthew Perry did. On the 14th of July, at a beach in Kunohama, now a suburb of the modern Japanese city, Yokosuka, Matthew Perry presented US President Fillmore's translated letter to representatives, whom he imagined came from the Emperor of Japan, but were in fact minions of the shogun. Matthew Perry departed, promising to return in a year. However, in a typical act of gunboat diplomacy, Matthew Perry returned in roughly 6 months, when after some resistance, he was allowed to drop anchor at Kanagawa, now a suburb of Yokohama. And so the Convention of Kanagawa was signed by the 2 states on the 31st of March 1854, allowing America access to 2 ports on Hokkaido, the most northern large island in the Japanese archipelago. These were Hakodate and Shimoda, which Matthew Perry visited after the signing the convention, and a cultural celebration which recognized the convention took place. Matthew Perry departed Japan still not grasping the political-cultural point of Japan, demonstrated by the fact that the imperial officer who signed the convention for Japan was actually the head of the educational department, and the ports of access granted to the US were the furthest away from the capital, although the ports did suit the American whaling community. And so, Commodore Matthew Perry returned to the US to a hero's welcome at opening up Japan from their 270 years of isolation from the rest of the world and securing the convention. Not to mention, he was granted a bonus of $20,000, just over $500,000 in today's money. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Commodore Matthew Perry. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and watch our next episode.